why are we so lucky? Let's close out with this. Why are we so lucky as Americans to have launch independence? Did it just happen by chance? Are we just, did it just fall in our laps? No. This podcast was built on discussing that story of us getting back to the place where we had launch independence. Again, I went to school for aerospace engineering at Worcester Polytechnic Institute, and I got my degree in aerospace engineering and a concentration in astronautics and a minor in jazz performance. But when I went to school at that time, the shuttle got retired my junior year of college, and it was a bleak output. And there was this, we were all scared. We were all scared after the space shuttle got retired and everything that came from the space shuttle and what failure actually means. It scared a whole generation into the most stringent tests with no real avenue or money or incentive to develop new technologies. It was just use the stuff that's flown before, build your spacecraft from that, and, we might tweak it, we might make it a little more efficient, but that's what you use. And so, as you could probably tell, someone like myself, that was very, very disconcerting. And obviously the people that work at SpaceX, all of them are there for that exact same reason. They're going to bust their ass and work 60-hour weeks, it's probably light, live at work basically, dedicate their whole lives to this because it requires that much of them. The reason they're doing that is because they wanted something that was extraordinary, and every day was extremely exciting, and you were doing something new and pushing the bounds of what's possible. And now to see what SpaceX has done and what they've helped us do to achieve this launch independence, they're not the only ones, but they've played a major part in it, and especially America's ability to bringing humans into space. That is SpaceX. They won that race. They're the ones. But how do we get here? Why are we here? I think if you go back to President Obama and NASA Administrator Charles Bolden, it's their partnership working together to get launch contractors, get the commercial space program working. We have to pay the Russians so many millions of dollars per astronaut, per seat, when, these were built 40 years ago, 30 years ago. They're sitting, they're getting taken care of, but it's old technology, right? We're paying millions of dollars just to send an astronaut up, and not even having the ability to actually launch into space. President Obama and Charles Bolden put up the commercial crew program that made it so that these companies could push the bounds, could fail, and get paid to keep failing until they figured it out. That helped NASA focus on the big picture. NASA had never had to do this before. We never had to create this whole network of redundancies to allow for human space travel to be a thing. That was not something that NASA has ever done before. We've done missions with lots of redundancies and spacecraft with lots of redundancies, but never the whole thing of space travel. It just hasn't been done. And then the interest in space died, and so you can't get a lot of funding. So what do you do? How do you do all of these things with the little amount of money that was actually being coordinated to the effort? We're talking an effort probably larger than it took to go to the moon the first time, and that had the motivation of war behind it. And in 2010, 2011, 2012, that wasn't, there was no way. You'd get laughed at. You get laughed at if you said that space needed more money or more funding or anything like that. People were saying, "Does NASA even exist?" That was what it was like a decade ago. From there, Jim Bridenstine, as the administrator of NASA after Charles Bolden, he took the reins and really fought a lot of the political battles that needed to happen, just like James Webb did for us. He really did a good job of keeping NASA, not politicizing NASA, but being a great politician to make sure that the funding that needed to be there happened. And he was there to massage that awkward period where, we we weren't even sure what SLS was going to be. We were still talking about having a hodgepodge of like United Launch Alliance second stage, having the Orion capsule, having a Falcon Heavy first stage. Like, we were talking about some crazy stuff not that long ago, and you know, SLS was being worked on, but it was kind of like in the mix. On top of that, you know, we had all these other companies that were also building up. The small satellite market was booming. Rocket Lab was picking that up. Blue Origin was behind the curtain most of that time. Now, the people at NASA knew what they were doing because they were getting funded by them, and obviously they were literally posted up right next door to, you know, they're right in that Kennedy Space Center area. SpaceX obviously was doing their thing, and the United Launch Alliance was keeping steady with all the missions that they have going on. You know, they're a very, very large organization. They have a huge stake in the launch market around the world, not even just the U.S. And then we also got lucky that when SpaceX started to show promise in the race towards sending the first humans to the International Space Station, the first American astronauts from American soil on American spacecraft, when SpaceX did that, and just a little before that, we were commenting it on the podcast. It's one of the cool things about this podcast, how we do it. Like, you can kind of go back and see what the feeling was then, what we thought was the case back then, and the things that we were looking at. There was this point, I think it was right around the abort test, where it just seemed like all the pieces were coming together, and NASA and SpaceX had found this balance after a decade of just angst between the young space people at places like SpaceX and, you know, the traditional flight heritage only, flight heritage heavy old space industry. And we do what we do. We don't need to, innovating is not the thing we're doing. We're trying to run an industry here. Sorry. So those two found a way, or it dissipated, right? The actual people behind the scenes got together and talked. NASA saw their progress. They were able to see the data and see the testing they were doing. I'm sure SpaceX learned a lot from NASA in that process as well. And we found balance. And that was a huge, huge thing, because it allowed us to achieve this launch independence that now you read a lot of these articles, or a lot of stuff we talk about. You see a lot on space Twitter right now. People are talking about how, the U.S.'s space industry is booming. It's more powerful than it ever was. We are so lucky that that's the case, that the timing worked out, that there was people like President Obama and NASA Administrator Charles Bolden in the early days who fought for this and made this happen. Jim Bridenstine for fighting all those political battles, and now, he's retired like the hobbits at the end of Lord of the Rings. He's gone into the other realm, the realm of elves, to live out the rest of his life. It's too dramatized by Middle Earth, the Middle Earth of space politics. So we thank all those people, all the early pioneers of companies like SpaceX and Blue Origin that got both those companies to a place where now either they've stayed to continue their mission, or they've left to start some other space startup. There's such a trickle down of this investment in the space industry that has truly made the U.S. launch independence possible, and as strong as it is today. That was from back then in those early days, and all the work that it took throughout then to get to this point, to invest in us, to invest in the U.S.'s ability to have our own space program. And that provides the ability for others to have it as well. But if everything goes the wrong way, we still have our ability to go to space. And that's what I'll leave you with this week. We went long this week, but there was a lot to talk about. Thank you for joining us. This is Today in Space. Don't forget, the SLS is on the pad. It's on the rollout. It's at the wet rehearsal. That means launch is soon. So in order to help us get down there to do live coverage, to take lots of pictures and videos, to get you guys up close and personal, although I definitely highly recommend if you can get down there, get down there. But in order to get us there, you have to help us out. Share the podcast, subscribe to the podcast, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube. Hit that subscribe button, hit that bell to get notified. Share this around, get more people talking, get more people watching. You can also support us financially by getting something awesome 3D printed from our store, ag3dprinting.etsy.com. That is our shop. We've got a bunch of stuff. Our James Webb Space Telescope coaster. We've got our Mandalorian magnets for your fridge. We have our PS4 stand, vertical and horizontal, to keep your gaming going, and so much more. And then, of course, if you have a project, if you're into 3D printing, or you're just getting into 3D printing, maybe you want to do something for a job, for a project, for something at school, something for yourself. You've heard about it, you don't know what to do. Hit us up. We'll give you a free quote on your project, whether you have a model already, whether it's just a drawing on a piece of paper, or just an idea. We help you bring that idea into reality with 3D printing. It's one of our specialties. I've been designing in CAD for like over 10 years at this point, and finding 3D printing just helped me do that faster. So, so now we help you do that as well. It's one of the magic of this show and this podcast and what we do in our 3D printing lab, AG3D. You can follow us at AG3D Printing on Instagram. See all the amazing stuff we're doing. We're going to have a lot more resin 3D printing and a lot of cool stuff coming up. And of course, more 3D printing with this dichromatic quantum filament from Matter Hackers. We are not sponsored, but we could be. We could be. But we're going to keep showing you what's possible with 3D printing because that's what we do here. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. Be good, spread love, and spread science. Live long and prosper. We'll see you in the next episode of Today in Space. Thanks for joining us.